Before you scroll past this, take just a moment. Think back to the last time something felt wrong in your relationship. Not a blow-up, not some dramatic confrontation, just a quiet, creeping sense that the woman you were building a life with was slowly drifting somewhere you couldn't follow. And every time you tried to bring it up, you somehow ended up walking away as the one who caused the problem. If that's ever been your reality, stay with this until the end. Because what comes next could spare you years of second-guessing yourself and carrying a weight you were never supposed to carry. What we're going to walk through are 4 specific patterns, 4 psychological scripts that tend to surface when a woman has begun the slow, silent process of emotionally leaving a relationship. And the goal isn't to decode what she says, it's to show you how to read what she does, because those 2 things are rarely the same. This isn't about bitterness toward women, and it isn't about becoming paranoid. It's about giving yourself the kind of clarity that most men never get until it's too late. The men who get hit hardest by situations like these are rarely careless men. They're devoted men, attentive men, men who showed up fully, trusted completely, and gave without keeping score. That's precisely why they never saw it coming. And here's something to carry with you through everything that follows. At the end of this, there's a single principle, just one, that acts as a defense against all 4 of these patterns. Not a list of rules, not a 10-step system. One thing. But to really understand why it works, you first have to understand what you're up against. Years of sitting with men in pain, successful men, grounded men, men who should have had every reason to feel secure, watching them come in completely undone, not because they were bad partners, not because they were controlling or neglectful, but because they missed a pattern hiding in plain sight. And every single one of them said the same thing once the fog finally lifted. The signs were there the whole time. I just didn't know how to read them. That's the entire purpose of this conversation. Now, before going into each pattern individually, there's something crucial to understand about how they work. These 4 patterns don't appear out of nowhere, scattered randomly through a relationship. They follow a specific sequence. They begin quietly, each one barely noticeable on its own. And then they compound. One layer settles on top of the last, and before long, the man inside that relationship is so disoriented, so thoroughly inside a frame she's built around him, that when the truth finally surfaces, he's already lost months, or sometimes years. And the part that cuts the deepest? He'll blame himself because she made sure of that. So pay attention not just to what each pattern means, but to the order in which they appear. The sequence matters just as much as the content. The first pattern usually sounds something like this: "I've just been really out of the mood lately." This is the most common thing a woman says in the period before she crosses a line, and it works so effectively because it sounds completely reasonable on its face. Everybody gets worn down. Jobs are demanding. Life gets heavy. Stress is real. When you hear it, every good instinct you have tells you to back off, give her room, be patient, and you think that patience is the mark of a good partner. But here's the truth that rarely gets said plainly. When a woman is genuinely in love with someone, stress doesn't build a wall between them. It actually draws her toward him. After a brutal week, she may not have the energy for passion, but she still reaches for closeness. She still wants the comfort of her person, the feeling of safety that comes from being near someone who is truly hers. That desire doesn't vanish under pressure when the love is real. So when physical closeness doesn't just slow down but disappears entirely, when weeks stretch into a month and she doesn't just avoid intimacy but seems to recoil from the smallest gesture of affection, when your hand on her back feels like an imposition, that isn't exhaustion, that is redirection. Her body hasn't gone cold to all closeness. It's gone cold to closeness with you specifically. And the psychological reason behind that shift is something most people never discuss openly. When a woman begins forming an emotional bond with another man, something shifts internally. Being physically close to her partner starts to feel like a betrayal, not of him, but of the new emotional connection she's quietly building. The new man becomes her center of gravity, and the person she's been with suddenly feels like the one standing in the way. touching him feels wrong. It feels uncomfortable in a way she can't fully explain, and may not even want to explain. To make this concrete, consider a man, a financial analyst in his early 40s, who came in after 3 years with a woman he'd trusted completely. For months she'd been pulling back. Every time he tried to get close, she said she was just drained from work, and he believed her because the explanation made sense. Long hours, real pressure, nothing unusual. But then the details stopped adding up. She was waking before sunrise to go to the gym, something she hadn't done in years. Her wardrobe changed completely. Fitted clothes, expensive cosmetics, a steady stream of confident photos posted publicly. But at home, she wouldn't hold his hand. He eventually understood what had been in front of him the whole time. She wasn't out of the mood. She was out of the mood with him. Her mouth said she was tired. Her actions said she felt alive again, just not around him. That contrast right there is the answer. Watch for it. The second pattern tends to come wrapped in language that sounds healthy and even admirable. It goes something like, "I really need to focus on myself right now." And when you first hear it, there's a part of you that responds positively. You think she's doing the work, she's becoming more self-aware. This is probably good for both of you. And to be fair, that interpretation is sometimes correct. Real personal growth exists. Genuine healing is real. When it's authentic, it's worth supporting without hesitation. But there's a defining difference between real growth and what this pattern actually describes. When a woman is genuinely developing herself within a healthy relationship, she brings her partner into that process. She shares what she's discovering. She talks about what she's reading or learning and then wants to explore how it applies to the two of them together. Real growth inside a loving relationship has an expansive quality. It opens things up rather than closing them off. But when her version of focusing on herself comes with total exclusion, when every attempt you make to be part of her journey is treated like an intrusion, when your desire to stay connected is reframed as a threat to her independence, that isn't self-care. That is deliberate self-separation. She is constructing a version of herself that doesn't include you, so that when she eventually steps away, emotionally or physically, the story she tells herself is clean. She didn't betray anyone. She simply evolved. And the part that makes your stomach drop, she'll engineer that story with your help. She'll call you controlling for wanting to be included. She'll say you're threatened by her growth. She'll accuse you of needing her to stay small. She takes your most natural, loving impulse, the desire to stay close to someone you care about, and reframes it as evidence that you're holding her back. She has turned the language of personal development into a tool aimed directly at you. A man who ran an auto repair shop in his mid-40s sat across from me with this story almost word for word. His girlfriend had gotten deeply into the idea of healing her inner child, reconnecting with her authentic self. He supported every bit of it, including paying for workshops she wanted to attend. But something shifted. Every workshop was hers alone. Every journal entry was off limits. She had nothing to share with him from any of it. When he suggested picking up one of the same books so they could talk about it together, she snapped at him. "This is my journey," she said, "not ours." Every time he showed genuine curiosity about what she was discovering, she accused him of trying to suffocate her progress. Meanwhile, her self-focused season included frequent trips out of town, late evenings at events he was never invited to, and long stretches of time online with people he'd never heard of. He finally saw clearly what had been happening. She wasn't healing her relationship with him. She was constructing the emotional distance she'd need to justify walking away from him. The question is a simple one. Does her growth draw you closer, or does it require you to get out of the way? When the answer is the latter, something is wrong. The third pattern is where things get genuinely dangerous, because unlike the first two, this one doesn't just reflect what's happening, it reaches inside your mind and rewires it. It sounds like this: you're being too controlling. Here's how it operates. You ask a reasonable question. Where were you last night? Who keeps texting you? normal questions that any caring partner would consider fair. And instead of an answer, you get an attack. Suddenly, the conversation isn't about her behavior at all. It's about your insecurity, your toxicity, your inability to trust. The entire exchange pivots away from what she was doing and onto what's allegedly wrong with you. And the reason this is so psychologically dangerous is that it actually works. Here's what's worth understanding at a deep level. When someone has nothing to hide, being questioned doesn't feel like an attack. It feels like a chance to be known. A person who is fully transparent reaches toward the question rather than away from it. She gives you more information than you asked for because honesty feels light when there's nothing beneath it. But when there are secrets, every question carries the risk of exposure. So instead of answering, she attacks because a good offense protects the information a defense might accidentally release. A restaurant manager in his mid-50s described the exact moment this happened to him. He noticed his girlfriend angling her phone away while texting late one night. He asked calmly, with no edge in his voice, just a simple question about who was reaching out so late. She erupted. "Why are you always monitoring me? You're possessive, you're suffocating, you're insecure, you're toxic." Within minutes, he was apologizing for asking a simple question, and the original subject had evaporated entirely. He later found out she had been building something with a coworker, the exact person she had been texting that night. The explosion wasn't uncontrolled emotion, it was a calculated maneuver. And over time, she didn't just pull it out in a single moment. She repeated it consistently, gradually, until he stopped asking questions altogether. He told himself he didn't want to seem like the kind of man who couldn't trust his partner. He thought maybe he actually was too controlling, and that, precisely, was the intended result. She wanted his instincts silenced while she continued without interference. His questions were never the problem. Her secrets were. The fourth pattern is the most sophisticated of all, and in some ways the cruelest, because it arrives wearing the face of everything a man hopes for in a relationship. It sounds like this: "I want us to be really honest with each other." When you hear it, something in you almost exhales with relief. Finally, the walls are coming down. Finally, real communication. You think this might actually fix everything. But what she's proposing isn't mutual transparency. It's selective transparency, strategically deployed. What it actually means in practice is that she gets to go deep into your interior life, your wounds, your fears, your regrets, the stories from your past that you've never told anyone, and you'll give her all of it because it finally feels like real intimacy. But when the current runs in the other direction, when you ask about the new person at her job she keeps mentioning, when you ask why she's been emotionally distant, when you ask about the messages she steps away to read, the atmosphere changes completely. "I thought we agreed to trust each other. I share so much with you, and it still isn't enough?" She has turned your own longing for closeness into the instrument she uses to shut you down. An insurance professional in his early 50s described it in detail. His girlfriend wanted to know everything about him. His first heartbreak, his fears about getting older, things he'd never said to anyone. And he opened up because she made it feel profoundly safe. But the moment he turned the same openness toward her, asking simple questions about where she'd been after work or why she seemed upset by something in her messages, she deflected every time. "You're suspicious. You don't trust me. I give you so much and it's never enough." While he was revealing the deepest parts of himself, she was carefully protecting the one thing she needed him not to see, the emotional connection she was quietly developing with someone else. This is what makes selective honesty so effective. It feeds a person just enough truth to keep them calm, to make them feel close, to make them feel guilty for wanting more, all while the thing that would change everything remains completely hidden. It gives you fragments of transparency so you feel ungrateful for asking for the full picture. Real honesty doesn't do this. When two people are genuinely open with each other, it flows naturally. It doesn't feel like excavation. It doesn't leave one person feeling guilty for asking. If she speaks freely about things that present her well but shuts down the moment questions get close to her actual behavior, that isn't vulnerability, that is strategy. Now here is the single principle that was promised at the beginning of this. When you encounter any of these 4 patterns, what you must not do is argue, chase, or demand answers. When you argue, you appear insecure. When you chase, you hand her more material to justify her distance. When you try to debate her words, she's already proving something through her actions somewhere you can't see. What you do instead is this. You observe, you go quiet, and you watch. Because actions don't lie, even when words do constantly. When she says she's not in the mood, don't fight it. Watch instead. Does she still reach for small forms of closeness, or has she pulled back entirely while visibly reinvesting in her appearance for the rest of the world? That contrast will tell you everything you need to know. When she says she wants to focus on herself, don't beg to be included. Just watch whether her growth seems to draw the 2 of you together, or whether every step she takes seems to require your absence. When she calls you controlling, don't get defensive. Ask yourself honestly whether what you asked was reasonable, the kind of question any grounded, healthy partner would ask without a second thought. If the answer is yes and she still attacked you, what you're seeing isn't evidence of your behavior. It's evidence of her exposure. When she announces a desire for mutual honesty, don't get swept up in the promise of it. Watch whether that honesty actually moves in both directions, or whether you're the only one being questioned while she decides carefully what to reveal. And here is the most important thing in this entire conversation. Trust what your body is telling you. Your instincts are not paranoia, they are information. The part of your mind operating below conscious awareness has already registered the shifts in her tone. The slight change in the way she laughs, the way she angles her phone, the way her eyes look when she answers a question. Your conscious mind is still catching up, but something deeper in you already knows. When everything she says sounds completely rational, but your chest feels heavy anyway, trust the heaviness. That feeling is not irrationality, it is data, and it's telling you something for a reason. 4 patterns. 4 psychological scripts. The withdrawal of physical closeness framed as exhaustion, when in truth her desire has shifted away from you entirely. The performance of personal growth framed as self-development, when in truth it's a calculated construction of distance designed to make leaving feel justified. The weaponization of accountability questions framed as evidence of your insecurity, when in truth it's a deflection designed to protect her secrets by attacking your character. And the invitation into selective honesty framed as intimacy, when in truth it extracts everything from you while carefully hiding the one piece of information that would change everything. If you take nothing else from this, take this. The right woman will never make you feel like you need to investigate your own relationship. She will not make you doubt your sanity for wanting to be close to her. She will not punish you for asking basic, reasonable questions. She will not hide behind the vocabulary of growth or boundaries or honesty while keeping you deliberately in the dark. She will make love visible and simple, not something you have to prove to yourself over and over again. And your real power, the thing that actually protects you, isn't in arguing, it isn't in chasing, it's in watching, in trusting your gut, in being willing to walk away with composure and clarity when her actions make the truth undeniable. That is how you protect your time, your heart, and your peace. If this landed for you, pass it on to someone who needs to hear it, because this kind of confusion grows in silence, and it loses its grip the moment someone names it clearly.